I'm Alexa Todd. I did 6 seasons of FLL. This is my 3rd season of FTC and 2nd season of RACI. Yeah, I'm the team captain of the JABOTs.
So several years ago, when I was coaching FLL, I was struggling with how to get the kids organized on tasks, right? Everybody wants to program, everybody wants to build the robot typically, and then other than a few individuals that had sort of different, I had some people who really liked working on the projects, but as a general rule, it was difficult to figure out if there was a discussion about how to settle on one way to build the robot and one way to program the robot. It was hard to have the team make that decision, and invariably the decision would come to me as the coach, which as time went on, I was more and more uncomfortable with playing that role, because as the kids were gaining knowledge, it really needed to be with them to make decisions on anything to do with FLL. So my husband, who then worked for Alaska Communications, and now it's me that works for Alaska Communications, used a tool in their day-to-day work here called the RACI. And when he saw what I was struggling with, he said, why don't you just use the RACI program as a way to help the kids own what it is that they do. I had no idea what it was. And so he showed me what it is. And then I started using it with my teams. And now today, the kids in FTC don't ever ask me for anything but money. They decide who runs, like what tasks need to be done, who needs to do what, who's the ultimate responsible person that's going to make a final decision. And they basically don't involve me at all. So we're going to run through some slides here. I'm going to basically hand it over to Alexa and have her run through how it is that the kids have been using it in the teams over the years. And so she'll explain what the R, the A, the C, and the I mean. And just keep in mind that this very sort of method for assigning ownership of tasks I use every single day in my job that I get paid to do. It is not uncommon that, 10 times during the day someone will say, who's the A on that? And you'll understand what that means in a second. So any questions before I hand it over to Alexa? I want to make sure everyone can hear us and that you can see the slides. Are we good?
Yeah, you guys are good from my end at least.
All right, I'm handing it over to Alexa.
So this is one of our RACI charts from like our last year in FLL. We usually start the season off by everyone gets together, we get in our meeting, and we start listing off jobs that that need to be done. And we make this list and we put everyone's name. And the E over there is the coach. She's got a lot of X's, mostly because the coach isn't really doing anything except, like she said, paying for it. So, the next slide, yes, okay. So I'm going to explain each of the letters so you actually understand what RACI means. This is kind of what my mom talked about, how corporations use it. It defines the roles. But like when we're in meetings, people know what they need to do. And if there's a dispute, who to go to figure that out. So R, responsible. Responsible is the doers, like it says. It's the people who want to participate in a task. So if we're talking about building, like the building team, most people on our team are an R for that because everyone wants to be part of building. They're responsible for it. But if you are responsible, that means that decisions that are being made need to go through the accountable person. Accountable is the boss, or I guess the leader is probably a better word for it. They're the ones making decisions, leading this task, just making sure it's kept on the schedule that needs to be done. And they're not like, when I say they're making the decisions are like deciding things, it's not like the responsible person has to ask them every time they need to put a screw on the robot. It's like, we have this claw design and this arm. Which one? And the responsible people can't really pick. I guess they can't decide, so that's when the accountable person would probably come in and make a decision.
It's an escalation point.
Yeah.
If the people doing the task can't get to a decision, so then the accountable person will step in and lead a discussion to reach a conclusion. And if they really, really can't,
yeah,
the accountable person decides. And that's what it means by who's the A.
Right. Who needs to make the decision? It's also, if a task is falling behind, who's the A? Who's supposed to be in charge of keeping this on schedule, making sure it gets done, that kind of stuff. And accountable people can also assign tasks to people who are like responsible or consulted and informed. I don't know what that is. Consulted. So we actually had Elaine Todd, my dad, as a consulted person on our team because he was like an expert opinion, and we'll ask him, we'll consult him on like the robot or on things like the RACI when we need business tools, I guess. We'll consult him, and so sometimes we put him on the chart as just a consulted person, or we put it in like our engineering notebook. And so this person is just an expert opinion. They're not doing anything. They don't really, they're not doing anything on the team, but they can have an opinion about it. So a lot of times we'll have like team spirit or like costumes, and the boys will always say, I want to be informed, and I say, okay, but then you can't say anything. Like if you're consulted, you can have an opinion about whether we put you in a tutu or not. But if you're informed, you're pretty much just told what's going on, and you don't really get to say anything about it. So if you want to be informed about programming, we can, like sometimes builders want to be informed, and we'll tell them what's going on with programming, but they don't really get to have an opinion about it. And jobs are able to be changed throughout the season, so sometimes, usually our RACI at the end of the season is like really marked up because people have like changed jobs, or we've had years where like people left the team, we had to like script their name out and move the things they were accountable for into other people's columns. And we have a rule on our team that everyone is accountable for at least one thing, so everyone can have that like leadership role. Like I said, everyone's accountable for at least one thing. We never force anyone to pick a role. I mean, everyone can choose what they're responsible for or not. If we don't have anyone doing like programming, then we've got a problem. We might have to force someone, but that's never happened. it's also just a good way to like check where things are at the beginning of the meeting. You can say like, where's the promote video? Who's the A on that? And get an update. It's good leadership building. And it's also good just for not like learning how to argue, but kind of. And sometimes you have to learn, like, you might really want this design on the robot, but the A has to make a decision and they don't choose your decision. And you gotta deal with that. We've definitely had that in the past, and it teaches, just good like responsibility. And kind of like we said before, it does reduce the involvement of the coach, but not completely. Usually we have the coach consulted and everything, so we can go and talk to her and get her opinion, but like she'll never be responsible on the building team. She doesn't get to touch the robot. Yeah, this is, so you can kind of see some, well, this was our very first RACI of the season. That was our old member, Ellie. And we just kind of get our list of roles, and then we go through and we say, like, Brayden, what do you want your role to be? And he can say what he wants, and then we go through it. There are some things that everyone has to be responsible for. For FTC, everyone has to be responsible for the engineering notebook. No one gets out of not putting things in the engineering notebook. Or an FLL, like it says on that RACI, everyone was responsible for team building exercises. Like everyone had to do it and participate. And that is probably like the only role that the coach was the A on, because she had to pick which exercises we would be doing. That was like our practice for the core values judging. And so she would have to pick those exercises and everyone had to do them. So sometimes we can't get that.
How many A's can you have per task?
1. So there's only one leader for everything, which is another decision that sometimes either the team captain decides or the coach needs to decide. If there's more than one person that wants to be the A for something, we last year had two members who both wanted to be the lead build, like the head builder role, the A in building. And we ended up picking one over the other just because of his experience and seniority. So sometimes it's difficult, but it makes it easier in the future. And like I said, it teaches responsibility and understanding.
So these were a couple of links I put up there. One of them is hidden. So let me see if I can get there. Tell me if you guys can see that.
Yep, shows up fine for me.
So RACI.com is a website you can go to, and what's really interesting, I think, and you can go directly to YouTube if you want to, but they have some videos, and let's see if this goes. I won't play them, but I just want you to see. To RACI 101. They have some RACI 101 YouTube videos that they have accessible to anyone, with a business intent, but and if you Google RACI videos, you will see all kinds of different approaches to using a RACI matrix in order to manage tasks and responsibilities. This is just one website that I'm showing you guys where they specialize in that, and that's how I ended up learning about it in the early days before I even taught it to the kids. Let me see here if I can figure out how to get back to. How do I get back to the present? Hang on, maybe it's this one. No?
No, you have
This?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then what I've got here is a couple of things. I put in a link to the Brickmasters videos that the kids put online. Hang on, I'm gonna stop that. That's just it. Yeah. So if you go to videos, and then I also gave you the link. We have a ton of videos here about all kinds of stuff that the kids have done over the years. But here's right here, RACI analysis for FLL teams. So if you want to show your little team members.
Today I will be talking to you about RACI. What is RACI?
So it's
RACI is used by major.
So it's the exact same presentation that we just showed you guys, but it's in a little video that the kids put together. And I think it's very powerful to have an FLL team member teaching your kids on your teams how they used RACI. So a sort of student to student type of training. I think it's just been really, really powerful. And this is the kind of thing we've taught now over the years. And I tell you, one of my all-time proudest moments was at state maybe 2 years ago, where a team from Juneau was awarded a core values trophy. And what was mentioned by the judges was that that team in Juneau had used the RACI matrix model as a way to manage the team, and to think back to when we started with this concept years ago, and to have seen it spread like that to other teams. It's just been really, really gratifying.
The FRC team is using it for the second year in a row, and actually Mrs. Brock's junior FLL team is making a RACI.
Wow,
Spread it to
I
a
didn't
lot
know
of
that.
teams, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So there, it's you know, nothing sort of super earth-shattering, but it's just a really, really great, easy way to assign tasks. And then we would put it, like you saw in the picture with Ellie, right? We put it on one of these big 3M sticky charts, kept it stuck to the wall the whole time, the whole season, and then marked it up as we went, right? So sometimes someone who is maybe an R on something decides that, yeah, they have no interest in, you know, designing the pit, for example. They just want to be informed, then we just update it. And we would just mark it up with different colors, and we take pictures of it, and the kids at the FTC level put it in their engineering notebook. In FLL, we created binders for each one of the judging sessions, so this would be included in our FLL binder for core values. So on here, I have the link, direct link to the RACI video that Ellie did. And that's it. Then I just have a picture of the kids this year. That's the JABOTs from this year.
So I had just two questions. One, the first, I'm wondering what other people are seeing. For me, the screen is frozen on the RACI.com page, but sometimes my screen does weird things, and then magically the Zoom recording shows it without any of the freezing. So I'm hoping other people are seeing the Brickmasters page. But then my second question was how you sort of, oh, shoot. So Jerry said that he's only seeing the RACI.com page too.
Let me do this. I'm going to stop share, and then I'll restart it.
Okay.
So, let's do this. Let's do a share, and see how it's all black. This one right here, you think? No, this right here. Let's see. Aha. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So here are the links, and I'll get this to you, Becca. So if people
actually, you know, if you guys can type it in the chat box, or I can I
Elaine?
can copy and paste. If you paste them in the chat box ends up in the recording.
Ah, let's do that. Okay. So, Control-C.
And then I'll go into the YouTube video and paste them in there too. My second question was if you guys could talk a little bit more about how you kind of subdivide tasks and how detailed an accountable position would get. So say you're working on the project, how would you divide that up and like change responsibility roles and sort of bring them down different levels?
So you're saying, for example, let's say you have one person who is the A for the project, and let's say you have 6 people who want to be responsible for the project. In other words, they want to be actively involved. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and then, you know, at what point do you break that down into different categories? Like, how often do you go back and divide a task up that you've, you know, made a category where somebody's accountable? When do you decide that you need to have 2 separate projects, turn it into 2 separate projects and have 2 different people accountable?
We've always had such a small team that we've never really had to do that.
Okay.
Usually it's the project manager, the A for the project, was the one assigning people tasks. So like building a prototype for the project, Ellie was always the A for that. So she would assign people what they should do. She was the project manager, and so she'd say like, hey Mitchell, you need to build the prototype. On bigger teams, like the FRC team, we have to make it into subcategories, and usually it's the build lead or like the engineering lead is the one asking people and then assigning them these roles. But then those people are now responsible for or accountable for CAD design or accountable for building this specific arm.
So you can have RACI matrices that are subordinate to the main one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's,
you know, I
that's
think,
what I was getting at.
yeah. So you can have one person, let's say, in FLL, you may not need it as much because the teams are a little bit smaller, but surely when you get to FRC and they're dealing with 30 kids, right, you can have subs. So then the person, let's say, who's responsible for project can then have a sub RACI that will say, write script, design props, sew costumes, you know, whatever else. And then those sub jobs can have an A for each of the subcategories with a variety of people who are responsible, consulted, and informed. And then that gives you, just like you would in a big corporation, it gives you sort of this escalation if there's a real breakdown in communication, which of course never happens in a company, right? Right? And so you escalate to the overall A, and that A may need to then escalate to the coach if for whatever reason they can't, you know, reach a decision. And like I always say, right, it's not about the robot. It really is about teaching these kids how sometimes decisions go your way, sometimes decisions do not go your way, and you just have to go along with it. You don't get to pout. And it is never a bad thing to go down a certain path and go, you know what, this isn't working out. I think we need to go back and reconsider our decision, and maybe we go to plan B. That's okay, that happens all the time. Yeah.
Any other questions? They can be about RACI or just general questions. You've got two experts in the room over there.
I will say this, if you choose to use this, put it in as a, I think one year we just put it on we took the actual piece of paper that was on the wall and we put it on a trifold or something, yeah. Bring it to your core values presentation if you're allowed, which you are allowed to bring things, I think, here locally, it's never been a problem. Talk about it in core values when the judges ask, how did you reach decisions? What did you do if you had a disagreement about something? If you use this kind of a model throughout the season, not only will the kids learn very, very valuable life lessons, but they'll be able to speak to it when the judges ask them about it. There's an actual process to making decisions and making choices as a team.
Yeah, and to me that does two things. One, you know, the whole idea of teaching core values is that the judges and the program is really looking at not just are there teams out there that get along magically, but are kids on teams learning management skills that help them work with different people, what you really need in a work or a social environment, what we wish we had in a lot of different leadership environments right now. And then the second thing is it's the, you know, being able to teach something is such deep proof that somebody understands it. So prepping the kids for judging is going to take them to another level of understanding why and how they're using RACI or whatever tool you're using. You know, even if it's just being able to talk about the fact that they vote as a team, if they prepare for judging and almost see it as they're teaching the judges how they make decisions as a team, it's going to help them understand the process better for themselves.
The last thing I'll add, I think, is that some coaches like to coach their teams in such a way that every single member of the team has to be in the room every single minute of every meeting, and every decision has to be, you know, a group decision. I think that is unrealistic, both as an FLL team and in real life. I always say when GM designs a car, there's probably 1,000 people involved in designing that car. No way do they get 1,000 people in a room each time they decide, you know, what a button's going to look like. And so when a person on a team, when a team member says, I just want to be informed, they are making a commitment to something that is very, very difficult to do. I think I can, you know, as an adult, I can say that, and that's to just stay out of it, right? I said I wasn't going to be involved in the decision. I was going to trust my team members to, you know, take care of this portion of the project. I'm just going to let it go and trust that other people do things. And that's a just incredibly valuable lesson to teach these kids, that they can carry to other teams as they go through their education and in life.
Okay, one more call for questions. And again, I'd love to hear from folks. One, if you have questions just about the season, again, or about event registration, or if there are other things that you can share just over the webinar now that you'd like to see future webinars on that you'd like us to cover in our coach support, let me know. Does anybody have some ideas or things that you've been struggling with that you'd really like to me to go out and find an expert on and have them share what they're doing? Okay. People have been devoted attendees, so I would love to tailor the webinars to what's going to be most useful. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing this way, you can send me a private chat. You can always send me an email. But hearing nothing else, there's no reason to keep people online. So we'll end a little bit early. And just thanks so much, Elaine and Alexa. Sorry you had to bounce rooms and it was a bit of a panic at the end there, but thanks for making it happen.
Yeah, thank you guys for that. That was really good.
What was that?
Oh, I said thank you. That was really great information.
That's great. And I mean, go look at videos online and see how different people do it different way. We put the name at the top, the tasks on the left. Some people will do the reverse. They'll put the names on the left, the tasks on the top. And the very first thing you should do is start thinking about the tasks. And then don't be afraid to add tasks as the season goes on. When you discover that there's something you missed at the beginning of the season, just add it, no problem. All right?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thought it was helpful. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.